Today on The Daily Charge, Twitter testing a way to let you follow topics, Instagram hiding likes, and guess who's leeching your private conversations now? Spoilers, it's Facebook!
Good morning and welcome to CNET's Daily Charge. It's Wednesday, August 14th. I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
And I'm Claire Riley.
Let's take a look at today's headlines. Twitter is testing a new way to use its service. The feature would allow people to follow topics like sports. These tweets would show up in your home feed. The plan is to roll out the topic feature worldwide by the end of this year. When asked if Twitter would give users the ability to edit a tweet, the product lead said, quote, "The feature is not anywhere near the top of our priority list." Claire, do you think that people being able to follow topics is going to get Twitter more users?
I don't know. I think it could make it easier for people to find what they're looking for, because that's the big barrier to entry for Twitter, isn't it? It's the ability to go on there, get through all the hashtags and junk and weird shortened links, and to find the stuff you're interested in following, because that's the conversation. So hopefully it might be like, oh yeah, I'm into the New England Patriots. That's the example we gave. I don't know if that's a bad team to like over here. I'm told it is. So
a tad bit.
Yeah. So you could follow your team and then start to build out from there. I think once you start with a thing you like, it's much easier to get a hook on Twitter. So I could see it working.
And it also could lead to people following certain accounts that way instead, because when you have this vast fire hose of information, you're not sure who's saying what. I would think that if Twitter is testing this, they would have some kind of curation on top of it. So maybe you're getting reputable sources with great information. So we'll see if that's different.
Reputable sources on Twitter.
We'll see.
I'm
living in a dream world.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, next up, Instagram is hiding the amount of likes and video views each post gets from the public in certain areas. The person who posts will still be able to see those stats. According to a Facebook spokesperson, hiding the data from the public will, quote, remove the pressure of how many likes a post will receive, end quote. Interviews with some people who are testing out the feature suggest some users think hiding likes will improve their mental health. Now, if this feature does go live all over Instagram, do you think it's going to change the way people actually use that service?
I think it will a bit, because it changes the way you engage. You feel that sort of Instagram is hive mentality, right? Mm-hmm. So changing the fact that I won't see that your posts get more than my more likes than mine, or whether I'm going to be less likely to like because I haven't seen that certain friends have. You know, I certainly notice that with some celebrity accounts, I'll take note that my friend has liked the post. I'll be like, oh, okay. Didn't know that they followed them as well. So I feel like it's that herd mentality, and that's going to shift a bit. I'll be interested to talk about what it means for brands as well, because in our story on this, Queenie Wong, our reporter, interviewed a couple of people who were behind smaller companies that promote heavily on Instagram, and they were noticing a drop down in the number of likes they got. So whether that affects their businesses and all of the stuff that we drunkenly buy on Instagram late at night, I'll be interested to see if it has an effect on that.
Yeah, I could see it having an impact pretty much coast to coast on this, because it's going to be affecting everybody. So whether likes or not get people up to the top, I could see that maybe even changing the way that their advertising is there, because you got to change once the game changes. Mm-hmm. And lastly, our main story, where we will keep it social. This time, a Bloomberg report says that Facebook paid contractors to transcribe clips of audio from users of its services. The contractors told Bloomberg that they did not know why Facebook needed the audio transcribed. Now, Facebook confirmed it was having audio transcribed and said, quote, much like Apple and Google, we paused human review of audio more than a week ago. Facebook says the audio in question was transcribed from users of Messenger, who opted into having their voice chats transcribed. Now, as Facebook mentioned in a statement, reports of Apple and Google transcribing audio have been in the press, Amazon as well. At this point, Claire, do you think people are just desensitized to the amount of companies that are just listening to them?
Facebook. This is the one thing that has haunted them forever, is Facebook listening to me to deliver customized ads. And this is just going to do them no favors in trying to quell that rumor. I do particularly love that they said we've stopped it more than a week ago, Bloomberg incidentally probably started reporting on this and asking questions more than a week ago, but that's another story. I think people are desensitized, but I think this is the big elephant in the room with Facebook and privacy. It's the one that certainly when I have conversations outside my tech circle with the normies, as they call them, I definitely notice that that's the big question I get asked. Is Facebook listening to me? Is Facebook listening to me? I think this is going to do them no favors. It's going to be a real struggle.
I mean, Facebook is saying that people opted into this feature, which I'm sure people like they clicked right through and they just probably they noticed that they read every single line like they do every single change.
Yeah. I certainly, I was trying to think myself, I opt out of most things on Messenger. I don't link my phone number to it. I don't link my contacts, but I don't ever remember having the option of having my messages transcribed. That's not a feature I even knew about. So I sort of wondered, have I opted into this? I mean, privacy nut Claire, probably not. I know I trust in my nature to hate everything, but I don't know of that as a feature. So there would definitely be people there that have opted in without realizing. And on the other side, the contractors who are doing the transcribing, this is how we found out about this, that they sort of raised a flag saying, we're not comfortable with this. This seems unethical. The fact that the contractors are doing that rather than Facebook saying this is unethical, that's a red flag. And some of them said that they were really concerned that there were conversations they didn't feel that they should be listening into. They were inappropriate to be listening into. So I think there would certainly, even if people have opted in, maybe they opted in 3 years ago and forgot about it and wouldn't necessarily be happy for having all of those calls transcribed.
You would take privacy over accuracy of what you're going to say? I mean, that's silly.
Oh, yes. It's like you don't even know me at all.
It's just crazy.
I think there are lots of great transcription services out there, but I use them for work when I'm interviewing someone, not to transcribe my calls with my mother or my husband.
I think that in some respects for things like Google Home or things where you're calling up these devices, so you know you're being listened to, I agree with you. I think people probably didn't notice that they were opting in. Maybe they opted into like a bunch of things at one time. I do enjoy when things are accurate, because if I'm doing a voice to text or am I doing a voice to anything, I want it to be clear. I don't want some miscommunication happening. So I think people are desensitized at this point because like, oh, look, it's Facebook now. That's like every major company at this point is listening. So
you're happy that it's transcribing, having a couple of humans do audits and stuff so that the AI gets smarter?
If I'm actually aware of it. I'm usually aware. Well, we're on the show, so we report this. I'm aware of it. So it's like, all right, I know what I'm getting into. I don't know if everyone else is paying attention to that.
Yeah.
That's why we're talking about it.
Yeah.
All right, to learn more about any of the topics we discussed, you can check the links below or follow us on Twitter. Just as a reminder, you can join us here on YouTube, Periscope, or at cnet.com/dailycharge, where we stream live weekday mornings at 11:15 a.m. Eastern. We love your feedback, so like, comment, and subscribe. Feel free to go ahead and start sending in your comments and questions about today's headlines. BVG, what questions have you unearthed?
Unearthed. I like that you always bring the vocab to the show.
That's me.
Right out the gate, let's go ahead and let Timothy vocalize what everybody's thinking. How many of these incidents from Facebook will have people saying enough is enough?
I think we've already reached critical mass with the Cambridge Analytica thing, and people have decided, oh, that was a while ago. That doesn't matter.
Yeah. I really think Cambridge Analytica was the one that tipped it into the mainstream. But as I say, Cambridge Analytica was fairly esoteric. It was something that got a lot of headlines and started people to ask questions about privacy. But it was also something that was a bit confusing what was going on. It was about how your data and this cross-linking of things you like, and that was building up this kind of aggregate picture of who you were. I think for the average person, that's very difficult to get a handle on. So I think with the listening to my conversations, that's just old school 1950s Cold War wiretapping paranoia. And I feel like that will be something that people can easily latch onto. But that said, I was talking to a designer here at CNET the other day, and they were saying, I don't use social media because I'm a designer and I see how this thing is designed to suck the time out of me. We love Facebook. It's our social heroine, and we keep using it because it's really enjoyable to use. So we know we shouldn't be on it. We know we should be minimizing our use and being more aware of our privacy. But gosh, it's just like keep eating that ice cream. Yes, I mixed metaphors wildly there, but you know.
But I mean, you could go from Facebook, then I don't like Facebook anymore. I'm going to go to Twitter. Then you find out they're doing something. I'm going to go to this other service,
Instagram, WhatsApp, all owned by Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. And because you have these options, you can be like, I don't like this ice cream. I'll go to this other one, but they're owned by the same company.
Yeah.
So
I know. I think it's really down to personal responsibility. And I think that's a couple of, it's the same with the Instagram hiding likes. I was thinking about it and I thought, well, I'll be interested to see how many likes my posts get, and I'll still be able to see that, and I'll still be interested to see other people's posts. But the way I use Instagram is to stay in touch with what my friends are doing and to follow a lot of drag queens. And you know what? I'll still get that content. I'll still be able to see the stuff I like. For a lot of people that are using it in that more influencer sphere, I feel like they will change the way they look at it. But also, you need to take responsibility for the kinds of accounts you're following. We have this big chat in the CNET team that's like, if you're unhappy using a social media account on Twitter, on Instagram, just rethink who you're following. You know, maybe mute someone and see if it has an effect. And I think it could be, if you're unhappy with the way Facebook's treating you, if you're unhappy with the way Twitter is serving up information, just kind of take a bit of a step back and have a bit of an audit and think about what you're doing. I think that's where not just people blindly following these machines. We have to take a personal choice here.
I think I've included that as my spring cleaning tip. It's like just unfollow people, unfollow your friends if you haven't talked to them in a year, other than saying happy birthday, because everyone does that. Like maybe take account for all of this data you're getting in. It can really impact you. If you're really like, well, they're always on vacation. Why am I not on vacation? It's like, well, they're only posting their vacations.
Yeah,
it's a
latogram.
Yeah.
It's a latogram. My rule is for anyone on social media, on Facebook, if they would sell your photo, an awkward photo of you, if you're in some sort of horrible incident, if they sell it to the news, you need to get rid of that person. That's my divider of who can stay on social media.
Get rid of following that person.
Yes,
don't get rid of the person.
just neutralize them. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's a good tip. I mean, last night I just got sick of just trawling through Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and I just took the icons off my home screen. I'm thinking that I might need to get rid of one of those services because I use them too much and I flip between them all. But taking the icons off the home screen, I found myself less likely to just go, I replaced Facebook with a podcasting app. And I thought maybe if I'm bored, I'll jump into that instead. So I don't know. I'm desperately broken when it comes to social media. I don't know if there's a fix for me.
We got any other questions?
Well, I just think that's a great topic of conversation. You mentioned spring cleaning. You know, people in the past have had yard sales, garage sales, stoop sales, estate sales. It's almost like, has the term digital hoarding ever been coined? Because that's what it has.
Yes.
That's absolutely what it feels like. There could be no more accurate. And that, I mean, that's with me being completely unknowledgeable about that study, if there is one, the idea of hoarding things for FOMO reasons, right?
Yeah.
That's why we pile up all these followings, and then you just get overwhelmed with information you don't need in your life, and then that just completely overwhelms you. And great topic of conversation, I think, that we're having here today. As far as questions go, Yan says, could Facebook be possibly scanning your Facebook Messenger text messages as well? And as long as we're going down that rabbit hole, let's see how deep it does go. Timothy asks, these audio recordings, are they only English ones, or are they scanning other languages?
Wow.
I'm looking into the language thing.
Well, I'm imagining these contractors were based in Santa Monica, so in California. I'm guessing that would lean it towards English language, but not necessarily. I know that Facebook, in terms of human moderation, has had issues. So say things posted on the platform that are inflammatory or hate speech, they've had problems with non-English language because they are not able to source as many contractors, and they've actually said that, you know, language has nuance, and, you know, a piece of, like a word in slang might mean a positive thing or a negative thing in a different language. So it's actually really difficult to moderate negative content in different languages. I don't know whether that would mean that it's the same going for just basic transcription. And the first question again, Brian, could you repeat that one?
The first question was if they were if they were scanning text messages as well, your Facebook Messenger text, or if it was only concerned specifically in this instance we're talking about those audio transcriptions.
Well, I think in this case, this has come as a surprise, and it's come as a surprise thanks to Bloomberg's reporting. I don't know. I would say that they're not scanning your messages, but if a story broke next week, next month, and next year that they had been scanning them, I wouldn't be surprised. That's not to say Facebook is doing that, but I certainly know that a lot of these big companies have sort of had a policy of seeking forgiveness rather than asking for permission. That's not necessarily to say that Facebook has done that. I want to be careful about what I say there, but I know that there's an uproar and they close things down. They closed this feature down a week ago, but that just says to me as a reporter, someone started asking questions, or they figured that maybe some of these contractors had started speaking to the media and they shut down the relationship then, not because they thought it was unethical. So I don't know. I think these kinds of problems blow up, and when they do, a company apologizes for it, but we only hear about it once it's blown up.
You have journalistic integrity, so I understand you're treading lightly. I don't. We're going to break that story next week. I bet you dollars
so here's
to
the thing.
donuts.
I've looked up the story, and this is from Digital Trends from last year, so I don't know if anything has changed. This is from April 5th, 2018. The headline reads, "Yes, Facebook is reading the messages you send through Messenger." And
And I'd already forgotten.
Right. So there's a question whether that's still going on. I went to Facebook's page itself. It says, who can see my Facebook messages? And they say only you and the people you're messaging can view your conversation. So maybe something has changed over the course of a year or not. But that's where we are. So basically the idea is maybe, but we don't know.
Yeah.
Facebook says they're not reading it.
I think they would. There has to be some sort of. Yeah, once again, I'm probably going to plead the fifth because of that whole integrity thing that you say I have, Brian. I don't know about that, but
more than me.
Yeah, I think there's some really problematic stuff around privacy, and it's always a question of privacy versus convenience. In the case of Google Home, or Alexa or whatever smart assistant you have, do you want it to know your habits so it can serve up better information for you? Maybe you do. But it's that trade-off, because the more convenient it becomes, the more it has to know about you. The more targeted your Instagram ads become, serving you up those T-shirts or shoes that you really do want to buy, it's because they're tracking the kinds of things you do. So I find it really problematic. I'm trying to get my messages off Messenger. Mm-hmm. I'm moving to WhatsApp. I know that it's just a matter of time before that becomes, a horrible free-for-all as well, especially now that Facebook is wanting to cross-link your Instagram, Messenger, and WhatsApp messages. It means there's going to be data sharing between those. I have massive problems with that, but...
Yeah, one of the biggest polls about, as I clink my ring, one of the polls about WhatsApp is that it's encrypted end to end. So in theory, even WhatsApp or Facebook couldn't read it. But if they're somehow linking it to other accounts, it seems like there would be something strange going on there, but I'm not sure if that will come to fruition yet. Yeah,
well, when that story broke about we want to make it easier for you to message someone across platforms, mm-hmm. everyone was talking about the convenience factor, and I thought the big thing that most people were missing was as soon as you start to cross-link, you get a more accurate picture. Even if it's anonymized, you can say that this person with this interest on Facebook also happens to send these kinds of messages on WhatsApp, and we didn't know that before. They're building up an accurate picture of your life. I really think I'll reassess if that kind of cross-linking happens. I'd reassess how I use WhatsApp, but I'm trying to minimize what messaging and what information I'm sharing with these social platforms, but unfortunately, we kind of signed the deal with the devil, a number of years ago when we got all these convenient features, and now we're starting to realize the problems with them, but they're so baked into our lives,
It's hard to extract yourself from the situation.
It really is. It really is. You become a social pariah, and then no one invites you to their parties because you're not on Facebook anymore. And it's like, well, you could have called me, guys. Anyway, that's just a personal thing.
That's very true, though. Painfully true. You brought up WhatsApp. Yan is asking if Facebook will also be listening to WhatsApp conversations, if that's any kind of level of concern.
Well, currently they can't.
Exactly. So could we maybe spell out a little bit as to why and the security measures that are in place with WhatsApp that will help protect that, and why maybe it's allegedly a safer platform than the others?
I have a very high level understanding, not like the actual deep dive into it. As I understand, the messages are encrypted from end to end. Only the person sending and receiving the message has the ability to see the actual decrypted text. So as the data is passing from your device to the cloud and back to the other person's device, basically stuff is encrypted to the point where nobody else can read it. The only key that allows you to decrypt it is on that other phone. So because of that, Facebook, in theory, could never actually understand what's going on unless they spent an unreasonable amount of time trying to decrypt it. But even then, it's supposed to be like 200 years or something crazy.
Yeah, I
so
think...
nothing's uncrackable in theory over an infinite time period, but it's extremely difficult.
Yeah, in terms of where we're at with cryptography, I think the kinds of keys they're using, it's for all intents and purposes impossible, because when Facebook or another company is subpoenaed to get access to encrypted messages, we saw that with the San Bernardino shooter's iPhone. That was a case with the FBI a couple of years ago. Apple wasn't able to open that phone. And I think we saw it with the El Paso shooter, I'm sorry to say this, one of the recent shootings over here recently, they were trying to get access to encrypted messages. This is a debate that's going on really intensely in Australia right now because, long story short, Australia is a member of the Five Eyes, which is a group of countries, including the United States and Canada and the UK and New Zealand, that share information in a kind of national security way. And Australia wants to force companies to make backdoors essentially into encrypted messaging services. Now, if that happens in Australia, it will have ramifications because it'll start coming into play in places like the UK and the US. But the tech companies are saying, well, you can't do that. And then our former Prime Minister said the laws of the land trump the laws of mathematics. And then all the mathematicians were like, you can't do that. Maths is pure. Anyway, that's just a real highlight of what's been going on in Australia recently. But this is a huge battle about whether we should be able to decrypt messages, because not for you and I and our messages about that barbecue on the weekend, but what if we're planning some sort of terrorist act?
With no barbecue.
With no barbecue. Suddenly, anytime you're having a conversation about our privacy, it's always tangled in with people who shouldn't have privacy because they're up to nefarious things. It's a debate that's as long as time itself. But right now, WhatsApp is encrypted end to end. So Facebook can't read those messages, even if it's someone trying to do something terrible on the platform.
And one of the arguments against building these backdoors for government use or whatever is that if the government has this data will get out. It will be found out either through hackers or somebody will social engineer their way into finding out how to decode these things, and that leads to a whole giant mess. So it's not just like, oh, the government shouldn't read it. It's that this what's supposed to be secure has a hole in it.
Yeah.
You can't allow that if you actually want any kind of security, privacy, or in some certain governments, I think this was BlackBerry Messenger in India and Pakistan, they wanted access, and BlackBerry's like, we don't have the ability to give you this, because there was a lot of monitoring these countries wanted to do. So that's sometimes you want to protect yourself. It's not just about conversations that you think are really private, but it's also sometimes if you could get persecuted for what you're saying or what you're trying to reach out, that's a huge deal. So
it's problematic. And governments create a backdoor. That backdoor is usable by everyone, and you better believe that governments aren't the smartest people out there when it comes to, hacking into encrypted messages. If they create a key, then bad people will use that key. Also, it's sometimes just not physically possible. And if you break the cryptography that's securing encrypted messages, you also put other security at risk. That kind of encryption secures things like banking transactions or government data even. So it's not as simple as saying, let's just break this particular conversation and everything else will be fine. It just doesn't work like that. So the laws of maths do trump everything else. That's my key message today.
And my key message is, since they're going to spy on you anyways, mess with them. Do everything in your power to try to screw with their algorithm. Buy the same black t-shirt 600 times. Order pizza from only 2 places. Just try to ruin their lives and break everything about what they're trying to do, which is sell you crap.
You'll ruin your life as well, Brian, if you're only wearing 600 black t-shirts and eating pizza for the rest of your life.
Have you seen me lately?
His new ads will simply be for Scotchgard and cleaning for his clothes.
Yeah.
How to protect your couch from pizza spills and how to make sure your black t-shirts remain black.
Yeah, well, Facebook thinks
so Woolite for you.
Facebook thinks I'm a 95-year-old Swedish woman, so I get some really weirdly targeted mature age dating ads. So that's how I'm doing my bit. Facebook, come at me with the best ads you can deliver, because I just don't think they're very good right now.
You know, now that you mention it, I do get a lot of ads for Clorox too. All right, we're almost out of time, so let's take a serious question. Commander Trium asks, what about penalizing these companies via breaking off their services in violation of privacy and making them all subject to government or third-party privacy auditing?
Well, then you have a question of which governments have a say in this. That also causes a great deal of issues with countries that are trying to suppress information that's being sent around. So if they're being audited by a country that is against that kind of thing, that becomes a huge issue. You're talking about third-party privacy auditing. I'm sure that's something that these companies would gladly say, yes, of course, we're all for that, because it removes the idea of regulation, because you'll do anything to avoid regulation if you're in any of these businesses. And that's not just Facebook or any, it's like any business tries really hard to avoid government regulation unless it benefits them in some way. So
I think it's more likely that we're going to see regulation come in. We've seen some of the Democratic 2020 candidates, notably Elizabeth Warren, saying that tech companies need to be regulated. Post-Cambridge Analytica, all of those Silicon Valley honchos were invited to Congress to sort of have a bit of a please explain moment. And I think as more of these privacy issues become bigger issues, then regulators are going to start taking more notice. They're already taking notice. Facebook is definitely upping the ante when it comes to having people ready to lobby for their cause in Washington. I think maybe our elected officials need to get a bit better at understanding how technology works, because a lot of them are, you read those congressional testimonies and you're just like, that's not how technology, guys, this isn't. So just maybe some of them could get a bit of a refresher course, but I think that's more likely that, they've been given free rein and they'll have to drag it in a bit.
Back to your rule of math. This will all suss itself out over time. People who've grown up with video games are in the government. So like video games aren't necessarily evil unless they seem to be older. Then you're going to have people who've been on social media for their entire life and they'll be like, oh yeah, I understand this. And the question of whether this is a violation of privacy, that's the real question. Do you have an expectation of privacy when you're using a third-party app to do something? If I'm talking to you, Claire, in a room, I'm expecting a bit of privacy. But if I'm doing this online, where does this become a private conversation?
But I mean, you're talking about people growing up with social media. Maybe we're going to see the reverse, that these people are so used to, younger generations are so used to chatting online, chatting through messenger services, that maybe they have some expectation of privacy, but they just don't even think, because it's so baked into their lives. They might have a Finsta, they might have their regular Instagram and their fake Instagram, but that might be the level of secrecy and privacy that they're sort of maintaining. So,
and privacy can change with generations. What's a reasonable expectation of privacy? That's the real thing.
I certainly don't have a millennial view of privacy. I mean, I'm of that generation, but I have like a hardcore, slightly pinko, 70-year-old guy who lives in the hinterland of some hippie region. That's probably where I'm at privacy-wise. So, sure, 95-year-old Swedish woman with a 70-year-old crazy former hippie's privacy standards.
See, this is why we need people reviewing the audio to transcribe all of that.
It's a rich tapestry.
What is hinterland?
Oh gosh,
we can talk about that.
Yeah,
offline,
we will.
I think. Brian, is there more time, or should we get out of here?
We should probably start wrapping things up. I'm just having a really fun time picturing whoever's transcribing Claire's messages, just going, "What the hell is this?"
I like to keep them on their toes.
And I have a guilty pleasure for watching crotchety, crusty old boomers in Congress try to decipher how the internets work. So I look forward to more of those hearings. It's just me. But we are out of time. Real quick, though, before we let him go, this is something you and I were talking about before the show started, because even I couldn't disseminate this. For following topics on Twitter, one of our first stories of the day, what is the difference between this just being news or a hashtag? Like, why is this not just like another section of news?
Okay, so as I was looking into this, the hashtag situation is usually go into a search and you're getting top or everything from everybody. In theory, if you're following a topic, it's going to be in your actual feed, so you're more likely to see it. And this wasn't specified, but it suggests that it would be curated in some way. Because if I'm looking up the Patriots, I'd hope to see stuff from the Patriots, the NFL, and whoever's playing them that week, or maybe ESPN. All of these different high-level companies that have something to do with it, as opposed to some person in the hinterland who's freaking out and saying, I am not a patriot, not showing up because you're following the patriots on a hashtag. So in theory, it'd be less confused. You'd have a more streamlined feed.
Yeah, I think right now hashtags kind of work like hyperlinks or just highlight words, and so you do just get it's the same Twitter hose but just a different nozzle. So I guess what you're going to see with this is exactly that, being able to have your favorite accounts, not having the weird patriot movement that are living in the hinterland and stockpiling canned soup, but you'll be able to follow your team and then have more genuine conversations. I think it'll be a layout. I just want to say one small thing: you don't need to edit the tweets when they were like, an edit feature that's low on our list of priorities. I'm really pro not having an edit feature.
There's a really good reason not to have
Absolutely. Keep your typos in so that we don't have misinformation or potential leaders of the free world saying that they never said what they said.
Not only that, but you can change the question. So you have this answer from lots of people saying, yes, we are all pro this movement. And your question was like, do you like kittens? And they changed what the question is.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, you totally changed what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you again for joining us. Tag us online. Let us know what you want to see on the show. For the Daily Charge, I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
And I'm Claire Riley.
Thanks for watching. I know that a hinterland is the often uncharted areas beyond a coastal district or a river's banks.